37 billion tons of CO2 that we pushed into our atmosphere last year. That's 8 times the volume of the Mountain Everest. And get this, just New York City, in one day, creates an amount of CO2 that reaches the height of the Empire State Building. And of course, all these emissions we are putting in the atmosphere are creating a change in our planet. They are changing the conditions that we were having for many years. These changes in climate are creating extreme weather events and disasters like the ones we saw in the Australian bushfires, where millions of hectares were destroyed, houses were lost, and lives of people and animals alike were also lost. We also saw here in Switzerland how these extreme weather events can affect us locally. And we saw the floodings 2 years ago. And this gives us a little bit of the urgency of the situation. When we think about the future, it's easy to get overwhelmed. So how new generations are going to live in our planet with conditions getting so extreme? And the good news is that the power to change things around lies within this audience today. It's the new generations that will do it. And of course, schools and us as parents have a role to play, because we are here to inspire them and support them to reduce carbon emissions and make this planet more habitable. But before we enter into how we could do this, let me go a little bit into what is this beast of climate change. And for that, we need to go to the root cause effect of climate change, which is the greenhouse effect. So picture this: you're in summer, you're inside of your car, you turn off the air conditioning, and suddenly that's like an oven, right? Super hot. That's because the sun enters through the windows of the car, hits everything inside, like the seats, the dashboard, the steering wheel, but the heat can't get out of the car. So temperature goes super hot rapidly. Similar situation happens in the planet. We have greenhouse gases that are surrounded the planet. They allow the radiation from the sun to come in. They hit our planet and they cannot escape. So greenhouse gases have been always around. And in fact, they are responsible for keeping the Earth at a certain temperature. Otherwise, we will be all frozen. But here's the plot twist. My generation took these greenhouse gases to a new level. How did we do it? Simple. First of all, we duplicated the population on Earth. When I was born, 50 years ago, we were just 4 billion people in the planet. Today we are 8, and we are aiming for 10 billion. Not only that, we have become frequent flyers and avid consumers. So we consume and we travel way more than our grandparents. And finally, all the activities that we do require fossil fuels. We use fossil fuels for traveling, we use fossil fuels for producing the stuff that we buy, and these fossil fuels produce greenhouse gases. So we have more people doing more things, and they use fossil fuels that produce greenhouse gases. So what is the consequence of all this recipe? We have achieved a high level of emissions, never seen in human history. So you have seen that over these 800,000 years, CO2 emissions in the atmosphere have been going up and down. But it was in the last 50 years that we were able to reach a level never seen in Earth, super fast. So the consequence of this is that this rapid change didn't allow the Earth to adapt. And it's creating changes like melting the ice caps, rising of the sea levels, that some of the islands our kids will never see because they will be under sea, and extreme weather events that every year are getting more frequent and more serious. So I hope that by this time I've scared the heck out of all the audience. And now that you're in this role, I have good news. So far was the bad part. This is the good news. Two good news. First of all, climate scientists have found a solution. They say, wait, there is a solution. We need to just slash by half our emissions in the next 10 years and reach net zero by 2050. Net zero is like balancing the water level in a bathtub. Basically, what you need to do is to adjust the faucet so that the water that goes inside of the bathtub is equivalent to the water that goes out through the plug hole. Similarly, with the atmosphere, what we need to do before 2050 is to reduce the amount of emissions we are putting into the atmosphere and increase the amount of emissions that are absorbed in the earth. So how is this done? Basically, to reduce emissions, we saw less carbon, less fossil fuels that need to be burned, and more renewable energy. And in order to increase the amount of emissions absorbed by Earth, we need to basically plant trees and develop technologies that are able to suck CO2 from the air. There is just one problem about this. So this was good news, but there is still a problem. The problem is governments and companies have embraced all net zero by 2050. And I, as an advisor, are helping companies to set these targets. But the problem is our generation is not fast enough. We're very slow. And we're not going to achieve the target if we follow like this. Fortunately, I have the second good news for you, is that we have a secret weapon. Over history, new generations have demonstrated that they have been able to create revolutions that accelerate change. We saw with the social movements created by Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks that they fought for the civil rights of the minorities and brought change to society. Similarly, we have seen Greta Thunberg and we've seen the Fridays for Future that really put climate change into the agenda of governments and companies. And of course, creating a revolution for those of you that are sitting there just finalizing high school, seems like super difficult. But the reality is that this is possible. You need to be perseverant, and you need to be able not to listen to those of you of those that tell you you should leave it away for the adults. But there is also one thing you could be doing, is starting by changing yourself. And this is something you can do right here and right now. And for that, I'm going to give you 3 little tips, small tips that you can start applying. The first thing is you need to understand your own carbon emissions. You need to understand your carbon footprint. Carbon footprint is basically the amount of emissions that are produced because of the activities you do. And usually are divided in 4 areas. One is whatever you do at home, so heating produces emissions, electricity of the console, the TV, and the other appliances that you have. You have everything related with your food, the food that you eat, the stuff that you purchase, and also the transportation. And you can go to many websites that will ask you a lot of questions, and at the end they will give you what is your carbon footprint, and also some of them they will give you advice on what are the things you could be doing. But I would like to explore with you just a few ideas so that you understand how this is done. So one thing you could be doing is working on the transportation. So coming to school, by bike, by trottinette, if you live closer, by public transport, or carpooling with your other students. Or if you can by car, use an electric car or a hybrid. But if you just take one example of one travel that you go from Geneva to Paris and you switch from airplane to train, you can straight away save 150 kilograms. The same you can do with your food. So you should be aiming to eat local produced food to avoid the transportation of that food and the emissions related with it. You can also opt for buying seasonal food, because when you buy seasonal food, you avoid the emissions related to keep the food fresh in fridges, for example. And also you should try to reduce the amount of meat and choose plant-based alternatives. So just one example, and I come from Spain, and we eat a lot of meat there. But if you just move from 100 grams daily meat to just twice a week, and you buy it locally, you will slash 650 kilograms per year. Finally, on your purchases. So if you focus on your on the stuff that we buy, you need to apply the mantra that everybody repeats: reduce, reuse, recycle. So do you really need to buy all that stuff? Will it make you more happy if you don't buy it? If you buy it? So start by reducing. That's the first thing. Second one, try to reuse. Try to get things from second hand. And finally, if whenever you finish using the product, try to recycle in the right bin. So as one example, on average in Switzerland, we buy around 30 kilograms of clothes. So next time that you go home, you try to weigh your clothes that you buy every year and check if this is correct. But if you just slash it 50% by buying second-hand clothes or by sharing with your friends, and this is something I don't do, but I can see my kids and my wife, they do a lot, so I think this is something that I still need to do a lot. You will slash 200 kilograms. Amazing, 1 ton of CO2 saved with just 3 things that I just recommended to you. This is around 20% of the normal emissions of a person living in Switzerland, which is around 5 tons per year. And this might be small, but when this is multiplied by millions of people doing it, is when we create impact. One advice, first of all, start small, be persistent, and then dream big. On the left, you can see a device invited by my son, with 6 years old. He came and said, look, I put this rubber band around the tap to save water. It was super effective. For 1 month, the full family was complaining that the tap was closing, and we were realizing how much water we were wasting and how much energy just because we left the tap open. So simple things do work. On the right, you have an example. This is a fashion, one of the most sustainable fashion contests. I was with them 3 weeks ago, and these are teenagers like those in the audience that designed this type of clothes made out of Nespresso capsules. They were made of plastics, they were made with IKEA, Mitres packaging, and even a TV antenna, as you can see on the right. And this tells me something that, for me, my generation is missing, which is creativity. They are very creative. The last advice is share. Speak with your friends about the topic, talk to your families, speak with your neighbors, and if possible, join associations that will give you more background and will allow you to create a bigger impact. And now schools. Let's focus on schools, because schools are super important in changing and shaping the future citizens of the planet. The first thing schools need to do is to be a role model. So how do they do it? Exactly the same as I said for individuals. Start by understanding your impact. Measure your carbon footprint. Set an objective, and then create activities that reduce carbon emissions. These activities could be from installing solar panels on the roof, creating a program to reduce food waste in cafeterias, or creating a recycling program. But also the most important thing is to communicate externally so other schools can follow your example. The second one is include sustainability topics in your curriculum. So explain the problem of climate change, the problem of water scarcity, the problem of plastic waste in the oceans, so that this topic is you inform your students into this subject. But it's not enough with teaching them. They need to be involved in these activities. They need to be part of the recycling. They need to be part of planting trees so that they really live sustainability. They don't just read it in a book. So, I pushed the wrong button. This is the one I want. Conclusion. Individual actions do matter, and schools are important catalyzers in this change. Climate scientists have told us that we still are on time to save the planet. We need to achieve net zero, and by doing reduction of our carbon emissions, we will make our planet more habitable. We are surrounded by young change makers. They are really motivated. So we spoke about how much they like technology, the metaverse, but they also do care about the planet. My generation created amazing things for this planet. We created the internet, the iPhone, the Nike Air Jordan shoes. But also we are leaving a legacy to our new generations. We are leaving one of the most challenging threats for the human history. So it's our responsibility as teachers and as parents to inform them and also support them into the shrinking of carbon emissions. And I believe this generation, with their creativity and with their determination, will be remembered as the generation that saved humanity from extinction. Thank you very much.